Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you for joining us for another webinar. As usual, we'll have a short presentation before we get things started. So, as we normally start, we'll start from a reflection, a few verses of the Quran. The one which I've chosen for this webinar is around the theme of brotherhood or ikhwaniyya. So the first ayah from Surah Al-Hujurat, إنما المؤمنون الإخوة. So indeed, all the believers are brothers. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. So reconcile between your brothers. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, have taqwa, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَرْحَمُونَ, so that you may receive God's mercy. So we have this concept, and we have this concept in Islam, that you would find that when people will talk to people in the community, they'll use the word brother, they might use the word sister, and so on, and having that sense of being in a family or being in a community. And it comes from this verse that the believers are brothers. Now, this word of brotherhood is sometimes substituted in the Quran for prophets. So different prophets will be used as saying, instead of saying prophet, it would be saying, and their brother said to them. So one of the examples is in chapter 26, verse 161, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it says, إِسْقَالَ لَهُمْ أَخُوَهُمْ, when their brother Lot. They could have just said, God could have just said, when the prophet or when their messenger or when Lot said to them. But he doesn't, he says, إِسْقَالَ لَهُمْ أَخُوَهُمْ. So in the story of Lot, the brotherhood is emphasized, that, and when this verse goes on, the next thing talks about is trustworthiness. Because obviously we need brothers who are trustworthy. So again, we see this theme in chapter 50, verse 13, where actually it's talking about different prophets, Wa'ad, wa Fir'aun, wa Ikhwanu Lut. So it's talking about the people of Ad, Pharaoh, and then it says the brothers of Lut. And it's interesting again that the word brothers is used, and it's central to this theme of when we're looking at the story of Lut. And I think sometimes we don't focus, sometimes we focus on the punishment and what happened and the destruction and so on. And sometimes we don't actually focus on some of the adjectives which are being used here in terms of describing Lot, or how God is addressing Lot as an individual. For those of you who don't know, and it might be your first time here, so we are essentially a support organization for Muslims, but we also welcome people of other faiths. We have a free consultation, free 25-minute consultation that you can book through the website. And you can basically, anything to do with sexual identity, gender identity. We've had parents, spouses. We've had obviously men and women who are struggling with sexual or gender identity. So it's quite a wide range of people, or people who just maybe looking for training or looking for support. So that option is available. There's a number of vacancies at the moment in terms of support circle. So our Sunday support circle for men, which might be changing times at the moment, or our second men's circle, if you like, that has vacancies in it. So if you're interested, that's there. Our Sundays women's circle, which is at 12:30, that one has as well. And then we've recently started our spouses circle due to demand of there not being a space for spouses. And that's just started, and that has sort of some vacancies as well. We also have the option for coaching. So this is quite limited. I only do it on Friday evenings. So there's a limited kind of spot for that. All of these projects we've discounted heavily. Support circles, £10 per month. The coaching is £50 per session. All of the money which we have goes back to strong support. So it's we basically rely on people using the service to run the service in that sense. And then we have things like this where we try to do webinars which are open and free and kind of give a space to discuss these issues where perhaps it's not safe in some circles to discuss these issues. So we provide that as well. So I'm really excited to be today to be speaking on this, and this it was probably something that in my journey has been elemental. So I can't I don't think I can describe how much effect Rich and Brothers Road has had on my journey. I don't think I can put words. And so for this webinar, I've gone for something which is quite informal because I feel there's so much that could be covered, and there's so much great work and also challenges. I want to address some of the challenges that come with this work too, and address people who might be looking at this, they're still skeptic about what this is, or maybe they're on the fence about what this type of work is, and be really honest. So the organization is called Brothers Road. I talked about brothers at the start. The name comes from this poem by very famous American poet, Robert Frost. And it's really interesting because I think I'd start with that. It's like, okay, why Brothers Road? Why is it called that? So I'm just going to read this out. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bends in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So this is very interesting, and perhaps we get time to see why the tagline being the road less traveled, or Brothers Road, the road not taken, the road less traveled. And while that is a reality to say that, okay, even if this is a minority, I mean, one of the things I really like on the website, Brothers Road website, is it says this is the only sexual minority it's still okay to bash. So you can't bash all the other minorities, but it's okay to bash this one because they deserve bashing, right? So if someone's taking a different route, they're taking a different path, it's less traveled, most people aren't going that way, are we still going to victimize that community and say, oh, you know, there's still something wrong there, why are less people doing it? Or, you know, are we truly liberal? Just to give an introduction, so Rich founded Brothers Road back in September 2000, and the first Journey into Manhood workshop was in January 2002. He also established coaching, so higher path life coaching professionally in 2005. So he's the founder and director of Brothers Road, as well as being a life coach. He's the father of two, daughter and son, widowed in 2006, remarried in 2010, and he lives with his wife in Virginia. So at start, Brothers Road started with personal testimonies. It was basically a website which was collating that. And in time, we'll look briefly through the history. It was then registered as a not-profit organization. And in 2002, the most famous weekends, if you like, Journey into Manhood weekend was created. And then following that, there were other weekends. Journey Continues, A Woman Who Loves, which is for women who are hurt or a loved one, same-sex attraction, or betrayal. Rich's certification is through the Coach Training Alliance, which he got in 2007. He has a bachelor's in communications, public relations from Brigham Young University. And yes, I think I've mentioned that at the start in terms of family. So I'm gonna also mention some of the challenges. So one of the things I remember Rich telling me is it's difficult being Rich, because if you Google his name, I mean, he's got a degree in public relations, right? So if you Google his name, things come up, and I wanted to address some of that. So this is what comes up in Britain if we search. So we've got the BBC, we've got this term, which we're very familiar with in strong support conversion therapy and what the agenda behind that is. I think there was a undercover reporter investigation in Canada, which is again very, you know, kind of the work that they do. We have seen it so many times in the UK where they'll go undercover, and you know, no one really talks about the ethics of what they're doing there, and then that's how they do some of the reporting. And of course, we had David Matheson, who was involved in Brothers Road at the start, and then is not involved at the moment. So obviously, and we also have to realize, like I said, this is work which is started in 2000, and we know in 2023 now. So this is a whole host of years of work which is being done. And recently, as you know, this framing of this work in terms of conversion therapy, this term that the LGBT community uses to basically denounce anything which doesn't fit a certain narrative, basically silences or attempts to silence some of the work which is here. And I always think that if you're doing meaningful work, you're gonna ruffle feathers, right? If you're not doing meaningful work, then you're not gonna get this type of thing. And actually, the funny part is, at least for the Muslim community, we look for things like, okay, who's the one who's speaking against this? Okay, he's the one who's speaking against it. And sometimes, these things, by God's grace, are actually publicity, because people know, a lot of people don't buy the narrative, or they don't believe in that narrative. And when they see people who are putting themselves on the line, are public, and I think that has a lot of support, and it has a lot of bravery and courage to do that. One of the things that is really, really good, and this was published, I know this was published when Brothers Road was called People Can Change, but to see and read the testimonies of the people where, Brothers Road has helped, myself including. There's so many other stories. There's stories on the website. There's other stories where there's so much change. And, like for me, especially in my journey, it was, okay, there's nothing in the Muslim community, or there is nothing which is visible. And this then and now, I think one of the things I've not emphasized is Brothers Road is a multi-faith organization. So you will see stories of the Jewish community, the Christian community, people of no faith. And I think in that way, Brothers Road does greater work than Strong Support, because Strong Support only looks at the Muslim community. Brothers Road looks at a multi-faith community, so it's basically open for anyone, regardless of faith or no faith, to come in. And I think the absence of this type of support, especially which is say non-faith based, is huge. So there's a huge need internationally for an organization such as Brothers Road, which is multi-faith. It's peer support. It's people coming together with their own life experiences, helping journey. So I think it's really remarkable. So like I said, I'll give a brief overview. Like we said, Brothers Road was set up in 2000, originally to collate stories of people who experienced a shift. And, and then still back in 2000, it was like, okay, we need to get this. There's an online group which was set in, and then the first gym workshop or weekend was in Maryland in 2002. In the same year, the organization was registered as nonprofit. And in 2006, there were 2 further weekends, Journey Continues and Journey Beyond. And then the first international weekend was in 2007, which was in England. And then the Yahoo community turned to Facebook, and people can realize, kind of, we're talking back then, Yahoo, Facebook, and that was, like I'm saying, decades of work, which is being done here. 2008, there started which many of you know I did for a number of years. It was so helpful after the weekend in my journey. And then 2009, weekend for spouses, weekend for wives, a woman who loves. 2010, you have the support group, A Woman's Heart. 2012, again, another milestone, and adding to the multi-faith aspect. So Journey to Manhood in Israel for the first time in bilingual English and Hebrew. 2014, 2000 journeyer goes through Journey into Manhood. Same year, Poland, which I've been involved with, having different translation, Ukrainian, Polish. 2016, the name changes from People Can Change to Brothers Road. 2016, gym 100th gym weekend, and that milestone covering 2,000 40 countries, which is just unbelievable. And then recently we see Journey into Manhood being offered in Spanish. So I believe the first one's been in Colombia. And now you can also see, I think maybe next month, maybe it is in Mexico. Those of you who also are interested in coaching, Rich has fantastic years of experience, which I benefited hugely from. If I could say really cheap, it's $85. I think in this work, we've had guests, we've had previous guests, and those of you who are aware in this community, it's very, very difficult to find, something like, I think it's probably comparable to ours, so I don't know, £50, that probably translates into the same figure. And Rich is way more experienced than I am. So absolutely, check that out if you're if that's something that works for you. So yeah, I'd like to welcome Rich.
Wow, great introduction. Thank you so much for that, Ali. It's good to be here.
Well, it's good to have you. It was certainly long overdue on my and like I said at the start, that for me, when I did the weekend, and I think it was April 2013, 20th April 2013. It was the first time in my life I was seeing there's a way. There were actually people who are now married, and it was completely opening a new world for me, which I didn't know existed, or had read about it in books, but I hadn't really seen a community which was there, which was supporting people on this road less traveled, as we're saying. And it's very difficult to find a community like that. And it was instrumental in me thinking, okay, this is something I can work on. This is actually something tangible. And it was really inspiring for me, because I thought, okay, this, someone's put them on the line, put them on, going public with this and doing that, and helping so many people for a community which sometimes is too afraid to come forward. I mean, we all know about how difficult it is to come out, even in the LGBTQ community, how difficult it is to say, oh, I have same-sex attraction. Just saying those words is very, very difficult. But to be leading a community, to have that safe space, and have it for not just one faith community, but have it for multi-faith communities, and the intricacies and the differences between the different communities, I think is really groundbreaking, and really admirable. So what I wanted to start off with was, if I could, just to understand your own journey, because we read a little bit in your biography that it was something that you yourself struggled with at the start, and yes, so take us from your own struggle, and then maybe what prompted you to have something like this, or create a website in 2000 collecting these stories.
Sure. Well, thank you. I really began the struggle in a lot of ways, and not until my 20s, because I think I'm different from a lot of SSA men in that my first attractions at age 12, 13, I noticed were for girls. But at around age 14, 15, 16, as I was having problems dealing with peers at school and fitting in and athletics and everything, and then I started finding pornography, and my first exposure to pornography was magazines that only showed women. And then later, as it got more hardcore, it was couples, and I noticed myself feeling more drawn to the men in the pictures and identifying with the men. And in some ways, it was touching an unmet need of affirming my own masculinity, but obviously in an unhealthy or certainly less healthy way. And so over those middle teenage years, especially at 16, a stranger, came on to me and tried to get me to go with him at one point, and I really struggled and wanted to, but was too scared. And so that was really the first time when I admitted to myself I might be gay, which was an overstatement because I clearly had attractions to girls as well. But there was this big hole in my heart, wanting acceptance from men and boys, peers, wanting a meaningful relationship with a father figure, things I did not have. And it just left holes in my heart that around that age, and especially with pornography, I started to try to fill those holes through lust. And not that I recommend that. That is not a great way to deal with this, obviously, because it created more problems than it solved. But then over the years, I did get married. At age 21, in my culture, my religious culture, that was kind of typical to get married at that young of an age, but I didn't solve my same-sex attraction issues. Surprise, surprise. I've never heard anybody say, oh yeah, that did it, that solved it. So obviously that didn't help. And then I started acting out with men. That marriage ended in divorce after about 3 years, a little more than 3 years. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to kind of throw myself into the gay world and see what it's like. So I was in Los Angeles, working in Los Angeles at that time, late 80s, and started exploring the gay life and going to clubs and having a couple of short-lived boyfriend relationships. And the main takeaway from that is I did not like myself as much as a gay man as I did as a straight man. My faith kind of went by the wayside, and I was willing to give up my faith if I found happiness in a gay life. I left all options open, but exploring the gay world, I just didn't like myself. I lost faith. My life didn't seem to have meaning except for, the next party, whoever the hottest guy was. And it just there's so much focus. I know not everybody's like this. But in my experience, there was just so much focus on who's the youngest guy, who's the hottest guy, so much physical focus and pretty shallow. And about that time, I met a woman through my church and that I was very attracted to, and at one point I told her about my divorce, and then I told her about this, and her response was, well, what do we do? How does this affect us? It wasn't, what are you going to do? Or it wasn't shaming in any way. That may have been the moment when I really fell in love with her, was when she was willing to kind of go on this journey with me. And so half a year later, I married her, and we were married for 18 years until she died of breast cancer in 2006. I continued to struggle for the first 9 years of our marriage until I found reparative therapy at Joe Nicolosi's clinic in Los Angeles. And that pretty much started to change my world. The only thing I had before then was pray, read scriptures, try to abstain, try to be good. And I didn't have a place to look at, wait a minute, there's a reason why, there are emotional reasons why I was having these feelings. And so through therapy, I started to be in a place where I could actually dig underneath the attraction, say, what's going on? Where did this come from? What about my relationship with peers growing up? What about my controlling, shaming mother, or my kind but distant father? How did those affect me? My sensitive personality, my lack of sort of meaningful male rapport and relationships early in my life. It's certainly in my teenage years, and the use of pornography that pretty much in a lot of ways started to change my arousal template, if you will. And so digging into those things, and I also continued to seek God, and I went into a 12-step program and a number of different things. And I just started to finally, after 14 years, I was able to stop acting out with men. I was able to stop constantly lusting and constantly seeking hookups. It didn't happen overnight, but there was a point where, I can point to the day when I actually stopped, on the day on the calendar when it was like, that was the last time. And it was amazing. And one of the most powerful things I remember my therapist telling me was, you need male affirmation. You need male connection and friendship. And you can decide whether to get it sexually or platonically. You can decide how to get it, but you can't just not get it, because that suppressing is not the answer. And so that was both scary and affirming at the same time. It was scary because I didn't really know how to have male friendships. I didn't really, my best friend is probably somebody I talk to maybe once a month. And we talk about movies and work and stuff. It was pretty shallow compared to the friendships I have today. And so to discover that was a part of the work that I needed to do, was go into some healing friendships, do some healing work, do some emotional healing from my past. That was huge. And then after so I threw myself into individual therapy. I did group therapy. I did a 12-step program. I did a men's healing work weekend retreat, an experiential retreat that was very intensive and scary as hell, because it was a weekend of men being men. But I also saw that men can emote, men can have feelings. It's not just women. I was raised to believe that only women get to show emotions, and if men show emotions, they're weak. They're not supposed to have feelings even. And so it was, and I also at that retreat that weekend saw men being kind and hugging and holding each other, even straight men. And that rocked my world. I've never seen that before. So from there, there's one of the 12 steps. The 12th step says, and I'm not going to get the wording right, but having experienced a shift, a recovery, we started to take this message to others. And I did start to feel a calling around 2000 to carry this experience forward and share this experience with other people. Not that I had no same-sex attraction anymore, but it wasn't controlling me. It wasn't lust-filled, and it wasn't dominating my life. So I sought out about a dozen other men with similar backgrounds through networking and things, and created a website. It was 2000. Remember what websites are like in 2000? They were just hideous and awful, but I did it myself using, a how-to for dummies, something like that, and created this really cheesy website. But the content was good. It was men sharing their stories, similar experiences of leaving behind some of those kinds of traps and emerging healthier and happier. Not necessarily 100% heterosexual, but I don't think that's the real goal. I think the real goal is to be at peace with who you are and live your life at peace and in harmony with your higher values. So that's a snapshot of many years of personal work and struggle.
And that's beautiful, because I think, and I love the terminology as well, journey. We use this as, it's not like, and we say this to people who come in, it's not like, oh, I'm going to do 10 sessions with Rich and then I'm done, or I'm going 10 sessions with someone, and it is a journey. And as you said at the start, it's all about, oh, I have these attractions and they're incongruent with my value system, but then a lot of the time, then when you go deeper in, it's less about the attractions and more of what you want to do in life, and you have, like you said, you use the 12-step program, reparative therapy, different outlets, different weekends, which were there, which would help you. And it was more of a work which was across several years. And I think from your story, what strikes me is or perhaps is different, a lot of people don't do this, is the last step of the 12-step program, which is, okay, how do we take this message forward? How do we, and you use the word calling. You said there is some type of calling, which was telling you to say, I need to create this, and I need to, back, like you said, back in 2000, where it was like, okay, we need to get this message out. What do you think was some of the motivation for you at that time to get those dozen people together and, to put something out there?
It was probably all the years that I struggled believing that I was the only one, that, everybody else was gay and proud, or they didn't struggle with this at all. And this living in this conflict, I didn't, and this was before the internet when I really struggled. So it's not like you could go Google, how to deal with unwanted same-sex attraction or something. There were no resources. So I wanted to be a resource. I wanted to let others know that there was hope, there was a path to freedom and peace. And it doesn't mean a complete conversion to heterosexuality, but it doesn't have to, because there's peace and wholeness without a complete 180-degree shift like that. And so to bring people together who have those shared experiences and can talk about what works, what doesn't work, and support each other, I just really wanted to be a part of that and to carry that forward. Now, initially, I thought after I put up the website, okay, I'm done. I'm doing my part. I'll just kind of update it from now and then, and I've done God's will. Then somebody else said, well, we need like support groups, like you mentioned, the Yahoo groups then, which was before Facebook. And so I said, okay, I don't know what those are exactly, but I can figure it out. And so I started Yahoo groups so that people coming to the website could then talk to each other and go online and meet others who were struggling and support each other and that kind of thing. And then I had this sense of a need to bring all of this together in an experiential weekend format, which I had in a general men's workshop environment, but and I tried to get other men to go to workshops like that, but I found that a lot of men with same-sex attraction are afraid of that kind of environment, as I was as well, and I understand. So we wanted to create something that was specific for men dealing with same-sex attraction or unwanted same-sex attraction, where they felt dissonance around it. And so it was, I identified some of the key issues that men deal with and kind of put them together in an intensive weekend of experiential processes, not just a workshop of teaching and talking, but actually having an experience, healing experiences with other men and with themselves. So one really simple example is just being able to stand and face another man, look him in the eyes, and process out loud what's going on. What do I feel when I'm in the presence of another man? Am I judging him? Is he judging me? What are my beliefs and fears? And there's a lot there. Most men don't look other men in the eyes, especially men who have fears around other men or don't feel like they belong. And so that's just a really simple example of, we go much deeper than that, of what an experiential process is. So the first one was in January 2002, and it was so powerful and such an unexpected and positive power in the lives of so many, including my own, that we went ahead and did two others that same year, one in California and maybe two in California, I don't know, but or one back in the East Coast in Maryland, as you said. And it started to grow, and other men came through who had been through the process and wanted to come back, or been through the weekend and wanted to come back and volunteer as staff member and pay it forward, so to speak. And it's been, to me, it's a really spiritual highlight, even though it's not a religious weekend per se. It's not Christian, it's not Muslim, it's not Jewish. It's God affirming, it's faith affirming. But we also have had atheists come through and others who are not people of faith. And it's just such a spiritual and positive experience to bring men together who are seeking to do God's will and to be at peace with this struggle and to be real with each other, that I find a really strong positive spirit there. And it's been very rewarding. So we've been doing it for more than 21 years now.
Absolutely. And, I've only few weekends that we have in Poland I've stopped, and we have, like Rich is saying now, we have people from Israel, we have Muslims, where people, you would think you'd have people coming together of different, and it'd be like, hang on. And there's this shared value, which is saying, okay, we've all gone through the same struggle. We can uniquely understand this because we've gone through it, and we know how difficult it has been to find help, to find the support, or to find a community which understands this and understands it from a God-affirming view or a faith-affirming view, or simply saying, well, this is a human right. Some people don't choose to live that way. They want to live a different way. And, and for that community to have a voice and to be respected. And I think it's absolutely, kind of remarkable. I know the website now looks nothing what it probably looked like in 2000, where it's got so many different languages now, translations, and even the weekends itself, like we mentioned, Mexico or Israel and Turkey, we're trying Arabic. So it is definitely something which has, kind of crossed that international border. Do you think you had that in mind? Do you think that was something you had hoped for when you were thinking of growth for Brothers Road?
I didn't think early on. I just wanted it to continue to exist. I just wanted to not be run out of business or whatever, so to speak. And but certainly later, I started to realize that these principles and this healing work apply to people from all walks of life. And when we take it to different countries, we don't really have to change it very much. Maybe the music, or we're doing a translation or something, then we're not going to use English music or whatever. But as far as the principles, in every country, every faith, men experience joy, fear, sadness, anger, shame, distress. We all know what it's like to have felt rejected and betrayed. And so there's so much commonality there that it really is surprisingly translatable or transferable to other countries and cultures. So somebody asked in the questions, why in Israel aren't you Muslims? No, we're not a Muslim organization. We're not a Christian organization, and we're not a Jewish organization. We are, maybe came late for this, but we are generally faith affirming, but also welcoming of people of no faith. And what I say is bring your own faith. You've probably got that covered. You know what you believe. I don't have anything to contribute there. I'm going to defer to your existing belief system, but we're going to go deep into the things that are different faiths or religions usually don't talk about very much or have a lot of knowledge of, which is the underlying issues that lead many of us to deal with same-sex attraction, sense of peer rejection, lack of father connection, unhealthy relationships with women sometimes, these kinds of things. So we will offer it to wherever people are seeking that kind of healing work. And if I love that we bring that together, where I've seen at one of our workshops more than once where a Muslim and a Jew would hug each other and say, I love you, brother. And one of them say, I can't believe I hugged a Jew, or I can't believe I hugged a Muslim. I never thought this would happen. But it's bringing that kind of love and understanding into the world. So if that doesn't fit with your belief system, then this organization is probably not for you. And this journey into manhood may not be for you. Because we want to go above and beyond that place. And let's see, I'm going to take a couple more of these questions, if that's okay.
Of course, yeah.
Someone said, I don't want to disclose to my family and people, how will I be disconnected for an entire weekend without giving them any clue? Well, you probably will need to tell them that you're either going to Turkey or that you are doing a men's retreat in Turkey. It's in a location that is no one would suspect, that like at a conference center or something. So you can tell them whatever you need to tell them, that you're doing a men's retreat or a Muslim retreat, if that will go down better or something. And that you won't be having access either, because they don't have Wi-Fi there, which I think they kind of don't. But you won't have access to your phone, or you're kind of doing a spiritual retreat and you want to disconnect. So it is, and a lot of other people have been through this. I've thought in the past of creating a fake website that says, an event in such and such a dates, that people could tell their family that's where they're going. But so far, I haven't actually felt the need to really do that. And if you have more questions, let's see, where are the details? The details are different depending on the location. So as I said, we're in a conference center. We're not going to give out the exact location until people register. And then we'll send an email letter that describes the particulars. And yeah, there'll be shared dorm rooms and shared group restrooms, that kind of thing. And eating together.
To give context of this question, so this is in terms of Gym Turkey. So obviously, we have, if you like, the first weekend, which we are bringing to Arab world, can I say, in terms of it's being done, translated into Arabic, obviously in English as well. So people who are, find it easier, because I know a lot of people could not travel to Poland, perhaps due to visa restrictions, but now the weekend being available in Turkey, which for some countries at least, I know Egypt is a bit difficult at the moment, but for other countries, you can get a e-visa to Turkey. So that's, kind of an easy location to be sent. And yes, as Rich has said, all of the workshops, they have shared, it is like a dormitory, so it's like shared, and yes, it is it's intentionally done that in terms of for safety, but also to experience the weekend in that way, that you are with other people who are going with a similar journey as you are. And the details are on the Brothers Road website. I think there's the FAQs section there, I think, which covers some of that material.
Yes. Yeah. So well, exactly, we're bringing it to Turkey because Poland, a lot of people in the Arab world could not come to Poland easily because of visa restrictions. And then we started, through Ali in particular, started hearing a lot of demand for and interest in Journey into Manhood. So yeah, we said, let's see what we can do to bring it to the Arab world. And right now, so our maximum will be about 25 to 30 participants. I don't know exactly the number yet, but we already have 10 registered, 11 maybe. And we did a pre-registration to just gauge interest, and we had like 33 people pre-register. So I think that we'll have a lot of demand for it, and probably a waiting list. So if this is something you want to do, go ahead and go ahead and register through the website. And we will have it up in Arabic in the next week or so, I think. But right now it's online. You can register in English.
Yeah, absolutely. There's already a lot of people pre-registered. So definitely, if you want to get your spot in, the registration's open in English, and then hopefully, for those who prefer in Arabic, hopefully that'll be done soon as well. So another question. I really appreciated Rich sharing his own story. Can relate very much. Married, young, divorced after 2 years, now on the path of healing and happily remarried with a supportive wife. But I
Nice.
struggle a lot with the idea that SSA will stay for life. Could you share more about how you came to terms with that? Also, what does long-term sobriety from porn look like? Is it possible? I'm beginning to lose hope.
Yeah, thank you. I think to understand, when you said the idea that SSA will stay for life, it doesn't mean that an erotic pull that leaves you feeling hungry and unfulfilled is going to stay for life. That is not at all what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, you may notice attractive men for the rest of your life. You may want to be around men and communities of men for the rest of your life. So same-sex attraction to me doesn't necessarily equal erotic same-sex attraction. So I believe that, and I have found in my own path and working with many other men, that a great deal of that need for male connection, perhaps most or all, can be met platonically. I did a retreat we did a reunion at a lake house in March. That was, we had like 15 men sitting on this big U-shaped couch at a lake house. So it was like, we were packed in there, and it was a big couch, but still. And we're talking and sharing so authentically and pressed up against each other in healthy, safe ways. And it's just such a beautiful feeling of brotherhood and connection, and I get you and you get me, and we're in this together kind of thing, that I and others told me left there and had no sense of same-sex attraction for days or weeks. It just was like, my tank is filled. I know I have brothers who love me and I love them, and I have a community of brothers, and so I can be fulfilled like that. And that is the beauty of that can come out of same-sex attraction. People are like, what do you mean anything good can come out of this? Well, it can, if you can shift it to a more platonic desire to connection with other men, it can be a beautiful thing. And then also, another way of looking at your question is, a heterosexual man who marries a woman, he's going to stay heterosexual his whole life. He's going to be noticing other women his whole life, and he may struggle with being faithful to his wife and not, going to porn or not looking at or flirting with other women. And his choice is to be monogamous and faithful. It's not like his sexuality shuts off and he's only attracted to this one woman who he married. So in that case, if it's not about lust, SSA and OSA are not that different. But if you're struggling, I'm not saying you'll struggle with lust for life, because that's going to be really painful if that's the case. You can move beyond lust. And I hear you saying, I'm talking to this anonymous attendee, I hear you saying that that you're losing hope about overcoming porn. And all I can say is many, many, many people have. Many people have, and there's no reason that you are uniquely addicted or uniquely broken or anything that you won't be able to, while so many others. So keep seeking God's help, keep finding and fulfilling the underlying needs that would cause you, keep trying to understand what is it that pulls you toward porn. It's a form of drug addiction in some ways, and you can absolutely overcome that, no question. We have a sheik who will be attending and supporting, and he is in charge of the food. So it's not this American Christian in charge of your food. Don't worry about that.
I know a lot of people wondering halal, especially. So we're in Turkey, so then that will be covered. It will be halal over there. I think that's maybe what that question might be getting at. What about a detailed schedule of the weekend?
Part of the magic of an experiential weekend is that you don't have a detailed schedule. I can tell you the kinds of things that you would be working on. You'll be working on your beliefs about men and women and yourself. You'll be working on feelings about men and women and yourself, potentially past traumas, issues that you have struggled with. We do a form of psychodrama, which is kind of emotional role play, where you choose an issue that has never been completely resolved, and you will help you walk through that from a healing perspective and kind of almost change the outcome, if you will, and as far as bringing your adult, mature self into that space and reimagine the experience. So the magic of this is in not knowing the details. I can tell you we'll have regular meal breaks and good meals. You'll have time enough for 8 hours of sleep at night and some breaks, but we're not going to give you a lot of details. But you can ask me specific questions and I'll try to answer, will we do this or that? But yeah, we don't want to ruin the magic by handing out a schedule where you can kind of pre-analyze, well, that doesn't make sense, or I don't want to do that one, that's too scary or too whatever. So this kind of a workshop is a leap of faith. I'm sure you would agree, Ali.
Absolutely. And, to add to what Rich said earlier, it's an experiential weekend. So it isn't, like a lot of people think it's about knowledge. It isn't. It's more about experiencing something and then getting knowledge of yourself in terms of what's triggering me here, or what things are coming up. And it's more about having a questioning mind. And you can pass if things are, we say at the start that there's safety and personal safety. So if you do feel that something isn't right for you, you're not comfortable, there is an opportunity to pass. But obviously we encourage people to take that leap of faith so you get the most out of the weekend, the most out of the process.
Absolutely. Thank you. I guess these are anonymous attendees. There are a bunch of different people. It's not like one guy is anonymous.
No.
Wow, he's really inquisitive. So let's see, what else can I tell you? If you attended in the United States and Indiana, there are a couple of options. If you may choose to bring your own food, so it's halal. Sometimes if we have enough Muslims attending, or enough Jews attending, maybe we'll bring kosher, and the Muslims will share with the kosher food. So yeah, we'll make accommodations for that. We'll make accommodations for prayer times, even if it's in the US. We are very respectful of religious obligations, and we will meet you where you are and accommodate them to the best of our ability.
So next question is, how would you explain the period of life in SSA journey where the magnitude of same-sex attraction is very high, in terms of even being a challenge to go out to walk and constantly noticing other handsome men? According to you, why do you think that is? So that's the first question. Also, could you, or maybe you want to answer that first and then I can go to the other.
Let me go ahead and address that. I see a lot of men see the intensity of their same-sex attraction as a barometer for how emotionally healthy they're living their lives. So if they have enough time with friends, with feeling male connected, feeling masculine within themselves, maybe they work out or exercise or do things that feel masculine, that when they have enough of that, some people say when their tank is filled, that their same-sex attraction diminishes in intensity or in them noticing it. So it's kind of a barometer that way. And when it gets really intense, the same-sex attraction gets really intense, it often means there's an unmet need that needs to be met, usually for healthy male platonic companionship and belonging to a community of men, or feeling masculine within yourself, doing things that help you feel more masculine. So that's my experience is. And then also, the more men act on lust, the more lustful they're going to feel. And it's a recurring process. And the less men act on lust in general, the less lust they're going to feel. At first, it might feel like, oh, it's my gosh, it's overwhelming. He said it'd be less. Well, over time, as you know, once you've had a week abstinence, a month abstinence or more, that the intensity of it often goes down, but probably only if you're also meeting your needs for other male companionship and not just depending on abstinence and suppression.
Thank you. So it follows on. Also, could you briefly explain the reparative drive in terms of dominance and submission to other men? So I guess this is Nicolosi's term, reparative drive.
Right. I don't have a lot of experience with that, but what I do have is, again, that there's an unmet need there. So I've heard some men with who are more submissive talking about that they crave a fatherly energy, more masculine men, and they feel loved and cared for when there's a dominant man in their life, the way they imagine a father would have been. And the dominance could be the flip side of that, of them feeling more masculine and whole when they are taking that ultra masculine position. So it could be either way. It's just how it shows up in individual lives. And I think of one man who said that, told me that he used to like play punch with a friend when he was in middle school, I think, and the friend said, you know, would finally kept telling him to stop, and finally would like beat him up. And his attitude was, I'd rather have him beat me up and notice me and touch me and give me attention, even if it's that way, than to ignore me. And to me, that was really helpful in helping me understand why someone might want to find that kind of physical dominance or abuse, even as at least I'm being seen, at least I'm not being ignored, because being ignored can feel like the deepest wound of anything.
Thank you. And that answers the rest of the question as well, in terms of domination. So thank you for that.
I'm not a psychologist. I'm a life coach. My work comes from 20 plus years, well, my own journey plus 20 plus years of working in this arena with Brothers Road and life coaching. And so I come to this from a very sort of practical lived experience kind of place, and not from a lot of academic study. Maybe I should just add that disclaimer.
And I think that is really important, because I think a lot of us think there's this perception that, it needs to be the therapy, or it needs to be this someone's license and so on. And what we're forgetting is that, you know, in life you go through experiences, or you're doing this work and you're seeing so many different men, and actually people's life stories and life experiences teach you so much more than a book would, even if that book was really, really good and it was really, really condensed way. You almost always learn so much through experiences, and then that's why in this work, when you're working with someone who's gone through something similar, then the relationship in that coach client, if you like, is so much deeper, because you know that person can understand some this in a way which unfortunately isn't being allowed to be understood outside of like maybe in other environments. So I just wanted to add that sometimes I think always experience counts more than sometimes what degree or so would be saying. So thank you for that. Next question is from Adam. How many men in your experience after having completed the gym weekend have gone on to marry as opposed to having stayed celibate, single for life, or even perhaps deciding to live an openly gay lifestyle?
I have thought it would be fascinating to try to track people down and follow up. Some people stay in touch with our community. Probably most don't. They move on with their lives in one way or another. So I don't really know how to answer that question. It could be as many as a third, a 10% to a third who eventually go into a gay lifestyle after having been with Journey into Manhood. I don't know. That's just a really wild guess. And a lot of the men who come to Journey into Manhood are actually married already. So it's part of this is about staying married, staying in a healthy marriage. Ali, I think you're one that married after having done this work.
Yeah, I got married 6 years to the day and the date of my gym weekend. That's why I remember 20th April.
That was quite the anniversary to your give it to your present to yourself.
Absolutely.
And as opposed to those things, celibate or single, well, keep in mind that a lot of men don't want to get married. A lot of SSA men, they that isn't necessarily their goal, is to get married. For some, it certainly is, and to find a wife and to have a happy relationship. And so certainly I have seen that happen. I've seen men stay married. I've seen marriages break up. Just the whole gamut. But there are a lot of men who don't want to marry, and that's okay too if they're happier in that, in staying single and celibate. And I had one man tell me, even if I was 100% heterosexual, I would have never married because I'm way too introverted to have somebody in my life 24/7. So it's not necessarily a universal thing. So a lot of men who are single, they're happy to live their lives that way. I see the goal as peace, and especially peace in line with your values, so that it's not bothering you every day. You're not shaming yourself. You're not feeling bad for having experienced these things. That, I think, is the real goal. And I don't know how to answer. I know there are men who to this day will tell me, 20 years ago, what a powerful impact it had and how it's changed their life. So I know it has staying power for some men and for their journey. But for others, it might be, a blip on the screen as they move on to other things in their lives. It entirely depends on your openness to God's will, your openness to healing work, and whatever your life path wants to take you.
Thank you. Someone's asking if they don't feel comfortable sharing a room with others, and so we can.
Well, these are typically group rooms. They're usually 3 or 4 men per room. I try to avoid situations where there's just 2 beds. So I don't know if that makes you more comfortable or less comfortable, the fact that it's not 1-to-1. I suppose if it's really uncomfortable, you can take a mattress out to the main room and sleep out in the main working room or something. You can find some kind of accommodation. We typically do not have private rooms, so that's not something, but we'll try to find a way to help you feel comfortable as you can be with the sleeping and living arrangements. What we don't want and don't really allow actually, is for men to leave and come back. We don't want them going out, making cell phone calls, mobile calls, coming back, sleeping somewhere else. This is an immersive experience. And so to get the most out of it, you really need to be immersed in the healing work and in the brotherhood and community, in the entire 48 hours or whatever it is.
What I found in my experience was, it was actually it was the first time I could be with people who were going through the same thing as me, but it was like, okay, I need to sleep. We could speak for hours. And schedule is pretty tight. You get up early and so on. So I recommend people to sleep.
There's a lot who want to stay up and talk for all hours. Yeah. Because they finally have a safe place of men who experience similar issues.
Yes. So next is a comment. Thank you, Rich and Ali, for bringing this to Turkey and making it accessible to many struggling Muslim brothers. Your impact would be strong, and I see that these workshops regularly continue into the future. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. That's really, really kind. Thank you so much for that comment.
Yeah, and kudos to Ali and others for really pushing this forward to bring it to the Arab world, because one of the challenges in going internationally is there's a pretty high skill level, even though these are almost always non-professionals. There's a pretty high skill level in facilitating this kind of work. And so a lot of times we have to bring people from the United States or from other countries to have the skill level and experience to facilitate this. So it's kind of a big undertaking, especially the first year that we go into a new country. So thanks to those who are making it happen.
Thank you. When and where is the next retreat after Istanbul? Would really like to experience it, but won't be able to make this one, unfortunately.
The next are after Istanbul are in the United States, in the state of Indiana, which is in Middle America, and then in Texas. And I hope that we'll be in Turkey annually. If we are able to continue this kind of outreach and everything, that would become annual. I don't know for sure whether we'll be going back to Poland. That depends on how much, whether we can do it, afford the costs, and also how much interest there is in going back to Europe. And so to be in Turkey, I would hope again next year at about maybe the same time of year roughly. And in the United States, we offer Journey into Manhood about 4 times a year, different parts of the country.
Thank you. Ideas for the kind of things I can do to feel more masculine, both in terms of bonding with other men, sports, what else, and also anything I can do or work on my own at home.
Great question. So it really depends on what makes you feel more masculine and more bonded to other men. Sports may be great, but it may be re-traumatizing if you haven't done some other work. Since then, I worked with an individual man. I just asked him, I was in my 30s, I asked him to teach me to play basketball, not because I thought basketball would make me straight, but because I had wounds from high school and junior high, middle school, about being picked on or laughed at because of my lack of ability. And so I asked this man, who was my age or a little younger and athletic, if he would teach me to play basketball. And he very kindly said yes, without asking, what the hell, why do you why do you need that? And so it was really very bonding to have a mentor like that, a sports mentor. And it give me a lot of healing, and I came to really actually like, I didn't play basketball in a team environment, but I like shooting baskets and enjoyed that. So what is it that makes you feel masculine and bonded? A lot of times it's going to be some kind of a mentor, like a personal trainer. So it's more one-on-one, and before you jump into sort of a group environment. I know men who have said certain types of martial arts, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, for instance, because there's a lot of physical contact that way. It's very masculinizing. I don't know if that's a word, but I've made it up and I like it. So I'm sticking with the word masculinizing. What makes you feel masculine? I talked to a man who was a professional ballet dancer, and for him, that was a very masculinizing activity, even though his brothers made fun of him. Because when you look at it, male ballet dancers are always very fit, and they have to be, and there's a lot more grace than, say, playing American football or something. That's for sure. So, what is it for you? Is there something you can learn, a skill, or anything that helps you feel masculine? Hiking, camping, I don't know what, I don't want to give just stereotypical things, but whatever it is for you. And then if you do it with other men or another man who's mentoring you and teaching you, it can be very affirming. And so that's my experience. And I just ask for you to decide on your own what makes you feel masculine, and how can you find other men to engage in those activities with you.
Thank you. I really long for approval and appreciation from male teachers, supervisors, to the point that I get really stressed out and worried about disappointing them. Is it normal for SSA men? I always overreact and get very stressed out, whether they're upset with me, for example, if they take very long to respond to a message.
That is very common to have unusually sensitive personality. I think that is a common aspect, almost, it's not universal, of course, nothing is, but maybe 90% of men with same-sex attraction deal with, and I'm making that number up, it's strictly a guess, don't quote me on it, but have that kind of sensitive personality, and they are more easily offended in things, whereas heterosexual men in general, that's to make it just big generalization, are more thick-skinned and are like, hey, dude, you didn't return my call. What's wrong with you? You know, get back to me. It's not this big sensitive thing like, you know, like we're acting like teenage girls. And so recognizing it is big. Recognizing I'm sensitive, and I'm working on it, and I want to be more thick-skinned or whatever. One of the big things I use is challenging unhelpful beliefs. If there is a belief that he doesn't approve of me, he didn't affirm me the way I wanted, then in fact I have a process on the Brothers Road website that if you go to the tools section of the Brothers Road website, tools and resources, there is an outline for challenging unwanted beliefs or distressing beliefs. Because just because we believe it doesn't make it true. Just because we feel hurt doesn't mean that anybody is thinking bad thoughts about us or is ignoring us or something. So challenging the beliefs can go a long way to doing some of that healing work, but also then looking at where did this come from, other than my innate personality I was born with to be sensitive. Maybe there are some wounds from the past of feeling rejected by dad or an older brother or a neighbor friend or something, and that we need to sort of work through those experiences of real or perceived rejection. So there's emotional work that may be done too, but I'd really start with the beliefs inventory. What are the stories I'm telling myself about this person's feelings toward me, their judgments of me? What am I telling myself about why he's not returning my call or whatever? And are those true? Why do I want to hang on to beliefs that hurt my feelings when I could challenge them and potentially choose to believe something else? I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. I think in addition to that, I wanted to share my experience of masochism in regards to the above question. I was most afraid of intimidating guys in childhood, bullied by boys throughout school. While I still feel uncomfortable around aggressive men, but my mind learned to ward off that pain by being submissive and worship aggressive men in my fantasies who abuse me with my permission in role play. So I guess this is about that power, that dominance that was.
That's a beautiful example. That's a beautiful example of the complexity of some of these issues and the underlying the underlying issues that could be going on and result in things that, you know, we weren't born with. You weren't born to be, you know, to have your sexual desire be toward aggressive men or something. This is something you're describing that was developed in your childhood. So knowing that, if that's something that creates problems for you and you want to challenge it, you can. You don't have to just say, well, that's the way I am. You can challenge your beliefs. You can work on those kinds of emotional experiences. We would do that at Journey into Manhood, for example, work through sort of one of those experiences and have you kind of rewrite the story so you come out more of a victor and less of a victim in that experience. And we can't change history, but we can change the way we relate to our history. We can change the way the stories we tell ourselves about what happened and the meaning we give it. And that is almost as good as changing the actual history, because we can become victorious over it that way.
Do you think your healing journey was mainly successful due to your faith, or was it due to your willpower and desire to marry the woman you have been lucky to fall in love with? And with your willpower and discipline, you controlled your SSA.
Actually, I'm not a great believer in willpower. Willpower is great for sort of an emergency. I need to get out of this situation quick. But over the long haul, our hearts win. And so in Brothers Road, the sexual sobriety program, we call that heart power versus willpower, because whatever the heart wants is ultimately what wins. And so the work then is on shifting our underlying desires rather than trying to conquer them through willpower. So for instance, yes, turning to God, wanting to do God's will more, wanting what's best for us, wanting what makes us better men. I think my faith played a role. I think faith plays a role in almost everyone's journey around this, but not everyone. But I think it plays a role in almost everything. But for me, it was really, I think, more that I saw a higher version of myself, and I didn't want to be the guy who just was led about by his lust and by his wounds. And I saw that that's what was happening, that I was letting my wounds define me and trying to meet them, heal them through lust, which, as far as I can tell, never works. So I'd say neither. It wasn't a willpower. It wasn't alone, although it played a role. It wasn't my faith alone, although it played an important role. And the desire to marry a woman is because I did have some underlying innate heterosexuality, and also I wanted to be the best version of me and not the broken version of me that turned to other men to try to make me feel better sexually.
Thank you. Will there be post-gym community with the attendees after the event? What is your vision when it comes to Journey into Manhood? What would you think about creating an SSA-OSA alliance to allow SSA men to experience healthy bonding with other OSA men in an experiential setting?
Sometimes we have that already because OSA men do come to Journey into Manhood. And this year, the start of this year, we offered a version of Journey into Manhood that we called A New Man, which was pretty much the same weekend, but with just a few tweaks, and so that we could market it to men generally and invite heterosexual men to experience the same thing or what we experienced. And so, but I think that's a great thing. If I haven't put a lot of focus on that in the past, and I don't know exactly what that would look like as far as an SSA-OSA alliance, but I think that's hugely what is needed. And SSA men who find OSA mentors and OSA community and friendship tend to do a lot better than those who don't, whose healing work is only with other SSA men. Although an SSA community is also supportive because they get you, and they sort of help.
Comment here saying, God bless you, Richard. Oh, sorry. I think I cut off.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and so the other is a post-gym. So there is a post-gym WhatsApp group. Typically, we have online groups that an online community for men who've been through Journey into Manhood, and a pre-gym group of online for men who haven't yet. But yeah, so there's that WhatsApp with that core group of men who went through the same journey into manhood that you went through. And it typically, because men are coming from all these different places, it typically doesn't, we can't typically have an in-person group. We do have the occasional reunion. We've had a couple of those in Poland in the past, and we can do that. But usually men are too dispersed for a lot of in-person connection.
Thank you. There's a comment saying, God bless you, Rich and Ali, for the amazing work you're doing. Thank you. Thank you for keeping us in your prayers. There's a question saying, you mentioned 12 steps in your early journey. After all these years of experience with SSA, what is your view now of 12 steps? Do you still recommend it? Are there any concerns or pitfalls you would point out? SA, SAA, or SLAA?
Cool. Yes, I think 12 steps programs can be immensely helpful, especially in person. And it also typically provides a way for the SSA man to interact with the OSA man, the OSA sex addict. So referring to the previous question, that's a natural community there to make healthy connections that way. What I have a couple of concerns with 12 steps for myself. One of them is just kind of the frustrating environment of, you have 3 minutes to share, and then there's no discussion, there's no crosstalk, you go to the next man. So I can like drop a bomb like, oh, my attraction is 2 men. And then I don't have any feedback of how anybody responds to that. So I do a Saturday group called Heart Power online, where there's dialogue, there's engagement, it's interpersonal. So you can have a little bit more conversation. I'm not a big fan of labeling yourself as an addict for the rest of all time. If it works for you, great. If it helps you stay sober, that's great. Do whatever works. But I prefer to think of myself as a former addict rather than a present day addict, to the extent that that's true, rather than think that I label myself as an addict forever. And I'm also not necessarily a fan of counting days. For some people, it works great. And for others, it can feel like, oh, I started over at square one and I lost all that time. Well, you didn't lose that sobriety. You still had it, but you were sober for 29 out of the last 30 days. Let's not pretend that that doesn't matter and you're going back to step 0. Those are a couple of my concerns. I don't, the sexual sobriety definition of sex addicts, Sexaholics Anonymous, is no sex with self or others other than your spouse. Whereas the Sex Addicts Anonymous, you kind of define your own sexuality, sobriety more. That's more in line with Brothers Road, because we're not a religion. We don't say, okay, this is what your sobriety needs to look like. For staffing purposes, there is an abstinence period of 6 months for assistant staff and 18 months for senior staff to have not been involved sexually or romantically with another man. So that's a standard we set for staffing, but I think it's best if other men kind of choose their own definition of what sobriety looks like for them.
And I think that what's so important in terms of labeling and the recovery community, I had this in my journey as well. It's like, okay, when do I stop labeling myself as being in recovery from SSA? It's like sometimes you take that label and you're like, oh, this is the only safe community I have. And OSA, I'm not sure, I'm not going to go to the OSA community because that's a different label. But actually, having those communities which then give us that safety to talk about the issues we have in a safe environment, but then using that communities as a stepping stone or a building block to then forge relationships in other communities, which we wouldn't be able to if we didn't have the recovery community. But you're absolutely right in that sometimes we can say, unless I've done every weekend, or unless I've ticked all the boxes, and there's almost like an OCD in recovery. Sometimes people have.
It is true. I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that.
Thank you. If what I'm really seeking is platonic bonding with men, then why is the drive towards physical intimacy? Why do I want to see men naked and have sex with them? Why do I have a porn problem instead of a just no male friends problem?
Well, I'm not a fan of the language of reparative therapy, but I do agree with Nicolosi's framing that this drive for same-sex sexual bonding is a reparative drive, meaning I don't have friends, I'm having trouble making friends, but I know that if I go to this app, I can hook up with the guy and at least be held and at least feel close, even if I have to have sex with him in order to have that sort of fake intimacy of friendship. And so I think it's that lust can play a role in trying to heal the wound. It just tends to make the problem bigger rather than smaller. In the immediate moment, it feels like it does address the wound. You are being close to a man, and it feels like actual intimacy, but it's kind of, it's quick, almost drive-through intimacy versus the kind of intimacy that is built over time through authentic, deep sharing. So it's a form of intimacy, but I would say it's an artificial form, and it does tend to make things more worse rather than better. Hope that addresses what you were asking. Also, lust is such a strong emotion that you really can't feel lust and any other feeling at the same time. You can't feel lust and loneliness so much at the same time, because lust will overpower it. So when you're feeling lonely and depressed and sad, you might be tempted to go to lust, to porn, whatever, because then that's more exhilarating and more exciting, and you'll feel better for a little bit. But then, of course, afterwards, you'll typically feel worse.
Just going to check with you for time, because I know we're at 90-minute mark. If you feel okay to take a couple more questions.
I am, yeah.
Okay, that's great. So this next question is for both of us. If this is not too personal, how long have you been sober, free from SSA? So I'll go first. So I don't think I ever claimed that I'll be free from SSA. I don't think that's possible. So you know, for me, I would say in my journey, SSA used to be something I used to always think about. It was on my mind. It was whenever I was happy, I'd remember, oh, I still have this shameful attraction, which I've not, you know, addressed. And now it isn't that. If the attraction does come in, then I can say, okay, can ask it, I can see what's happening. I don't think that, and this is what I, you know, for anyone who comes to me, it's like, the work isn't about just deleting an emotion or deleting the attraction. I don't think that's possible. The work was, for me, was, okay, I have the attraction now. What do I do with it? What work do I need from it? What is it telling me? What is it telling me in terms of my needs? What is it telling me in terms of the unresolved conflict I'm still having if I'm putting another man at a pedestal to myself? What is it that I'm telling myself when I'm having that attraction? So it was having that understanding of having the attraction and letting it be and understanding it, rather than it be a continuous battle with the attraction itself. In terms of acting out, I never acted out. So I never acted out with anyone else. And I know sometimes people say that, well, then you've not, truly felt. I had issue with pornography, you know, and it was an issue which I had for years, where it was every night, and it was really, really difficult. You know, and I can say now, yes, there is a greater deal of sobriety than I used to have. And it's not like now I don't, back then there was no halal way, we were not married, or there wasn't anyone I could talk to if I'm triggered. You know, and sometimes for me in my journey, there's also been that your spouse isn't just, you know, oh, she's an accessory. She's also someone that I can talk about the struggle and say, oh, I'm finding that guy attractive, or this is what's happening, because she knows, and she's a support from me in my journey. So yeah, that's That's me.
Beautiful. For me, yeah, I was very much a sex addict, and the worst of it ended about 25 years ago, I think. Yeah, but that's not to say I haven't had any struggles or any porn since then. I mean, I have gone years without any porn and where it didn't appeal to me, and then I've had times when it was a struggle. So I don't count days or months or whatever, so I couldn't really answer that question. It is a continuing process of getting my needs met authentically, and doing emotional healing work and staying close to God. So I accept that is what the path looks like, but I'm also very glad to be free of the worst of it from prior years.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Rich, do you notice any general trends among your attendees, depending on their faith? Example, Christian men versus Muslim men, or are the differences minimal or non-existent? So general trends among your attendees. So
I haven't by faith, but I sometimes do by age. I think the younger men, we used to have a minimum of 18, and now it's 21, because we want men to have lived on their own a little bit, to be a little further away from their parents, so they know they're doing it for themselves and not for others. Because generally, a lot of times, the younger men haven't had a chance yet to really decide what they want in life. So if a man's 25, 30, 35, or whatever, he's more likely to kind of have decided the path that he wants to be on. That's one of the main demographic, or perhaps the main demographic. As far as emotionally, the more humble a man is, not self-shaming, but just humble versus prideful and arrogant, that seems to play a difference too as to where they're going to land.
Was there any part of you that enjoyed your years living in the gay life? How does it feel now when you recollect that period of your life?
Well, the months, not years, that I spent kind of dating men, if you will, I'm glad. The only thing that really comes out of that is that I have the experience to know that it was not the way that I wanted to live my life. Sometimes there are men who question, well, maybe I should have tried when I had the chance or whatever. And I tell them, probably not. It probably wouldn't help. It probably would make things worse. But I don't know. For me, at least I have had some experience of speaking from experience, that for me, that is a very unhealthy lifestyle, and it doesn't work for me. It might work for others. I don't know, but it doesn't work for me. And I know that from firsthand experience. But were there any positive? Yeah, it was, especially initially, it felt like, oh, I felt so free, and I'm not going to resist this anymore. And that was exciting, but it didn't last very long because the other negativity of that lifestyle overpowered that. These are fantastic questions.
Yeah. I had a question as well, which you didn't get to, in terms of challenges that you faced doing this work. So we kind of at the start, that you've been, if you like, the few people in the public sphere for this kind of work, and I've seen, I think there was a Vice documentary, there's ABC. You've allowed a lot of outside influence to come in to see what the weekend experience is like. And I remember this, you were asking, I remember you were asking me, how is this news channel? Are they, which side are they? And and I think you've been very honest in having the integrity of saying, okay, this is what we're doing, see what we're doing, these are the processes. But I think recently, and because of legislation everywhere, where there is, kind of a push to kind of silence this type of community. Things have gotten harder, and what, like, when you look back and you reflect, do you think that are there changes that you want to make? Do you think there was some things you've looked back and said, okay, maybe we do it this way? And kind of obviously it isn't, like I say, it isn't the nicest of experiences having very different articles. You Google, someone saying, oh, he's doing really good work, and someone saying, no, he's not doing great work, and being in the public sphere for that. I just want to, kind of being the public face for this community. How has it been for yourself, doing this work, which obviously is a calling for you, but also kind of navigating the challenges that come with it?
It has been challenging. It is. Sometimes I said, God, isn't there something else I could be doing, like saving puppies or something that everybody thinks is a great thing and you get all these kudos for, instead of something as complicated as sexuality and faith? And so, yeah, I don't do interviews anymore. I get almost no requests, because the media have gone so far as to think that even to talk to us is the equivalent of talking to terrorists or Nazis or something. At least that's what I think they think. So I don't get really requests anymore, but I almost never agree to them either, because I don't believe that fair and impartial journalists exist in America any longer, or anywhere else in the world that I know of. So unless I know that it's a conservative, talk show or conservative outlet or something, I won't talk to them anymore. But again, I'm not getting the requests, so I think that's fine. I'm not sure how much good it's done over time. I was hoping, well, at least people will find us that way, and that's true, but I don't know whether it's been a net positive or not. Although I know people who said, yeah, I came to Journey into Manhood because I learned that from this show or that article or something. So that's good. One of the things I never thought I would have to do in 2015, a Jewish organization was being sued for their work, the same kind of work, and we had done they had referred some people to Journey into Manhood, and so I got called to testify in court, and to have to defend this work in open court was just like so surreal that I would ever have to do that. Can't people just live their lives? If they don't want what we have to offer, why do you want to take it away? Let's be adults here. And so that was surreal, and at the end of the day, probably not worth it. But I felt like I wanted to try to defend what they were doing and the fact that they had referred people to us over the years. But we were never sued directly. I think the statute of limitations that expired, or they didn't have grounds to sue us. So that's good. But a lot of the hate has stopped. A lot of the aggressive, calling us names and everything has stopped. I don't see that very much anymore. Maybe partly because we changed our name from People Can Change to Brothers Road. The name worked for a number of years, and then people started to say, oh, you mean people can go from gay to straight, you mean people should change, you mean people are bad if they, it's like, no, I didn't mean any of that. So I think that changing the name and some of the messaging has helped. Setting expectations also, even though some people want to hear, oh yeah, you're going to come through this, and as long as you take these steps and do this work, you're going to be completely straight and you're going to get married. But obviously nobody can promise that, and you don't need to, because again, I want to emphasize the goal is living at peace with who you are and living in accordance with your values.
And even just finding a community which facilitates that goal of living in peace with value is incredibly rare. And, and I think some of the, like I said before, some of the challenges in opposition is only coming if you're doing powerful work, right? We were doing powerful work and we weren't seeing change, and we weren't seeing lives being impacted. And I think one of the other things probably have not emphasized is this is a completely volunteer led, for most of it, you have like very thin staff, I think maybe one person, but the rest of it's led by the community. So if there was no need, there would be no community, right? So
and the vast majority of people come to us from referrals from their therapists or from people who've been through this before. So some people can't just find us on the internet and take the leap of faith, but a lot have referred. The majority are referrals. So obviously people come through and are satisfied and encourage others to have a similar experience.
Beautiful.
And will we see at Brothers Road UK with regular gym weekends and other activities here? You probably won't, because I don't want to enter into that legal environment where we would be considered to be breaking the law. The last time I was in the UK was in 2009, and I got stopped at the airport and they wouldn't let me in the country, and they accused me of, I don't know, doing conversion therapy or something. And so I had to leave. And we still had the weekend because we had other senior leaders who could run it. But I don't think the UK is an environment where I think it's too much risk for us, not because of what we do, but because of what they think we do. If they understood what we do with any kind of open mind or neutral position at all, it would be completely benign. But that's not what they think we do. So, and they don't want to believe otherwise.
Thank you.
Words on the wall behind me are keywords from the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And they are above pictures of events we've done. The first one is in Israel. The second one is Austria. Third is Colombia. And the fourth is Poland. So it's kind of some of the inspiration on the wall behind me.
Pretty beautiful. Well, you've given us a lot of your time today, Rich. It's so many questions. I think we've answered about 25 questions, and in this, for me, having just having this weekend, coming to Arab world, coming to Turkey, or coming to people from that land, for Muslim audience, I think that's been like a dream come true for me, that we're in this state where we were speaking earlier in terms of the multi-faith aspect of it, of people who you wouldn't, we said Muslim hugging a Jew, where else would you see that? And it's really, really beautiful that we have this brotherhood, this community, which is there, and I'm looking forward to the weekend in Turkey. Those of you can't join, hopefully maybe next year, if it so happens. Then I know some people are not able this year, but hopefully, or another weekend like in US or others which are available, and hopefully you can. I'd love for it to be in the UK for someone who's saying that. Be easier for me, but unfortunately, the situation sometimes in these countries, the UK is sometimes it's not possible.
Well, I agree with what this man said. Kudos to you, and strong support for doing the work that you do in an otherwise hostile secular environment.
Yes, yeah. I think US is is not far far off from where we are at as well. But no, thank you for that comment. Are there any closing remarks? Anything you would like to add, Rich?
Just that re-emphasis that you can find peace. This does not have to define you. You don't have to be in shame for it. You can find peace. You can bring your behavior in line with your values. This is absolutely doable. And I hope that you will find a way. And yes, I will be in Istanbul. I look forward to being there. That's the last question.
Okay, yes. So yes, you can see us in Istanbul. Yes, definitely. Well, yes, and Rich will be there as well. We're very lucky to have Rich with us in that weekend. So yes, to close off, if you're interested in the weekend, you can contact Rich, contact myself. There's actually an email, turkey@brothersroad.org. And I know some of you have asked me before in terms of sponsorship. There is some sponsorship which is available with Brothers Road, but that only covers the fees. And then there's other sponsorship which you can contact myself in terms of if people needing help and support coming through for that weekend. So we have a form and so on, so you can contact myself or message us for that. We're hoping to make it accessible for people. Like Rich mentioned, this is the first weekend, first time we are doing it in Turkey. So there's kind of a lot of logistics and so that need to be sorted. But we hopefully we can deliver, and people do need help and support, and please do reach out. And hopefully, it is, hopefully we can see some of you. I can see the attendees at Istanbul itself. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Rich. I'd say again, strong support would probably not exist if I wasn't kind of in this work. It was I have really fond memories of my gym weekend experience. I really recommend the Journey Together groups, which was after you did a weekend, you have like a call afterwards, and then you can start with the circle, and that has been a fundamental working block for me. It was every week I did sessions, and I'd probably tell Rich about the different women I was seeing for marriage and what it was happening, and it was just a mental check-in for me to just offload and say, okay, this is where I am. And it was providing that safe environment where my values were upheld, and I was, it wasn't about changing sexual orientation. It was about me finding peace, as Rich is saying, finding peace where I'm at. And it wasn't just about this sexuality. It was so much more in terms of my confidence, my assertiveness, how I perceived myself, if I took risks, how I perceived, how God perceived me. There were so many other things other than the attraction, which was being worked on. And it was providing that safe experience in an environment that understood those values. Because as most of you know, it's very difficult to find safe spaces which are faith-affirming. It's like it's very, very difficult to find that faith-affirming spaces. So please check it out. The website's brothersroad.org. You can find the details there. I want to thank Rich for his work, and hopefully we can see some of you in Turkey, in Istanbul for the weekend.
Thank you so much, Ali.
Thank you. God bless.